Revealed. The incredible secret behind my DIL's weekly book club attendance. She never read a page. Sarah couldn't shake the sickening feeling that rapidly coiled in her stomach like a venomous snake. Week after week, her daughter-in-law, Jenna, attended the book club, contributing charmingly but never once opening the books they discussed. The group of women, Sarah's sanctuary, seemed to thrive on Jenna's flair, while Sarah's heart quietly sank. Was her passion for literature, her devotion to teaching, overshadowed by this young woman's calculated deception? How could someone gain acceptance among peers while defying the very essence of what she fought to instill in her students? Integrity and honesty. As she navigated through yet another week, Sarah's mind raced with questions, each one stirring the pot of her frustration. Was it Jenna's vibrant demeanor that shielded her from criticism? Or perhaps the ongoing applause from group members made them blind to her lack of authenticity? Each meeting tightened the knot in Sarah's gut. She felt like an outsider, observing the facade unfold before her eyes, while the rest remained blissfully oblivious. It's not right. It can't be right. Sarah murmured to herself late into the night, poring over her notes from the last meeting. The tension pulsed beneath her skin like electricity, igniting parallels to her own professional journey. The hours spent to convey the beauty and importance of literature that Jenna so casually dismissed. In those moments, intimate conversations turned into pointed critiques. Suddenly, the words of authors who once inspired her felt like daggers aimed at her failing confidence, her heartbeat echoing them back. What was she doing wrong? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The following Tuesday wrapped its cold fingers around her, bringing with it more than just autumn's chill. Arriving at her house, Sarah mentally prepared herself. She had the creeping sense that it was going to come to a head. Tension crackled in the air, thickening as Jenna defended her latest choice, a thriller none of them had read, eloquently but superficially. Sarah felt herself constricting, as if the room's walls were closing in. Every smile Jenna projected felt like an affront to the hard-earned respect of women who poured their souls into their readings. Was she too rigid? Had she misjudged the kindness that came with light-hearted engagement versus genuine education? As the club navigated heated discussions about merit and authenticity, Sarah lost herself in a spiral of conflicts, facing her own ideals against what seemed to be Jenna's misguided intent. Every laugh from Jenna, a little too loud, a little too confident, made Sarah question if she was battling a ghost or the reality of someone she adored, but could not outright confront. As she sat there, the group discussing their next book, Sarah felt like an actress in a play, lost in a sea of judgments while Jenna stood in the spotlight, showcasing her deceptive charm. The invisible chasm between them grew wider. Jenna's animated gestures felt like a taunt, making Sarah's frustration boil over at the very center of family bonds. What would it take to shatter this polished facade? Could the truth expose the cracks? Thoughts swirled, devouring her breath with every clench of her fists. The room fell silent, all eyes shifting towards her expectantly, but Sarah remained paralyzed. The tension within her only heightened as they turned to the one person who had yet to speak. Her. How much longer could she endure the deception that lingered like a thick fog in her beloved gathering? The pulse of silence resonated in Sarah's ears, a call to action and self-reflection intertwined. Surely speaking out could invoke chaos, attributing Jenna's charm to malice. But the repercussions of inaction loomed larger. Was it fear of confronting her own ideals that stymied her, or an unwillingness to disrupt the harmony of a group that provided her solace? She felt her breath hitch, the weight of an internal battle colliding with the expectations of her peers. "Sarah!" The gentle prodding from Lisa, one of her closest friends in the book club, brought her back into focus. She could see the concern woven across several faces, yet amidst the warmth lay a brewing storm, disillusionment festering within her. I think it's time," Sarah stammered out, her voice nearly drowned in the suffocating atmosphere vibrating with anticipation. Was she ready for this? Each word felt layered with the potential for backlash or camaraderie, a double-edged sword of confrontation. "I think we need to discuss integrity here." Jenna's eyebrows shot up, the facade cracking ever so slightly as laughter faded from her lips. "Integrity? In a book club? You mean to tell me we can't creatively interpret literature?" The dismissal was sharp, but Sarah held her ground. "It's not just about creativity, Jenna. It's about the respect for the authors and the work involved. Not participating diminishes the impact of what we discuss. It makes everything hollow." The group shifted, energy igniting as murmurs of agreement materialized and swirled. Sarah's confidence began to grow on the wings of their response, yet doubt lingered. Was it too late to salvage the relationship she valued? But vulnerability can connect as much as it can divide, and she steeled herself for whatever lay beyond this moment. Jenna leaned forward, her rehearsed charm re-establishing itself, but it felt frayed at the edges. "But why does it matter to you? Isn't it all about enjoying the company and socializing? And perhaps that is where we differ." Sarah's heart raced, the assertiveness revitalizing the fight within her. "Literature is what brought us together, a shared love for stories and the dialogue they foster. I can't help but feel betrayed every time you pull off this act. We all put effort in. Don't you think we deserve the same from you?" An apprehensive silence cloaked them, and Jenna's folded arms indicated a closed-off stance. But there was an air of uncertainty about her, too, an almost imperceptible tension beneath the surface. Perhaps it was a window into her own insecurities. Sarah realized that in defending her beliefs, she may not only challenge Jenna, but also illuminate a truth she had long avoided in herself. The risk of authenticity. "Maybe it's not just about you." Jenna's voice wavered as her bravado began to falter. "Maybe I'm just trying to fit in. I admire you all so much, and I thought maybe if I pretended to know, I'd belong." The revelation struck like a thunderbolt, igniting the group in hushed gasps. Sarah felt a rush of empathy, but also an urgency. Could confronting the issue rally not only her beliefs, but also Jenna's character? There was a burgeoning chance for transformation here, not just for herself, but for the delicate web of familial connections. Yet within the possibility loomed another question, one that would circle back to haunt her in silent moments. How much of her own need for validation had clouded her willingness to confront the truth? Was it her ideals that guided her, or personal fear wrapped in professional pride? Before she could voice the next thought, Jenna's panic seemed to spiral. "What if all this is for nothing?" Jenna's voice trembled, panic flooding her features. As the air thinned, Sarah took a deep breath, realizing the responsibility now rested with her. Would she guide this conversation towards honesty and unity, or would Jenna slip away further into the veil of deception? The stakes had never felt higher, and she sensed a choice had crystallized before her, uniting the tensions for clarity or allowing them to fester. What would her decision mean for her journey ahead? The moment of reckoning loomed. Would Sarah seize this opportunity as a catalyst for change, or would she allow it to slip through her fingers, echoing her earlier fears of inadequacy? She could not linger in ambiguity any longer. The answer was now hers to unearth, the truth a stepping stone to reclaiming her narrative. The air crackled with unspoken emotions as Sarah surveyed the faces surrounding her. The realization hit her hard. This was not merely about Jenna's antics. It was a reflection of her own entrapment in fear and the dire need for acceptance. Her palms dampened at the thought. Had she spent too long aligning with the comfort of familiarity? There it was, a sense of urgency that screamed for a reckoning, not just for the group, but within herself. "Let's be real for a moment," she urged, voice steadying. "If we don't hold each other accountable, where does that leave us? We risk becoming something we never intended, a shell of a community, merely going through the motions." She watched as Jenna's face shifted from defiance to fear, an inner conflict churning just below the surface. Was it strength or desperation wrestling for dominance? Sarah sensed that the outcome was hinged on her next words, each syllable a possible shift in the dynamic that had formed over the weeks. This wasn't just about literature. It was about integrity and relationships. "I know it's hard to be vulnerable," Sarah continued, her heart pounding. "But pretending doesn't foster friendship. It creates betrayal, like a play where the actors forget their lines. We owe it to each other to be honest, to show up authentically, and to hold space for our imperfections." As she spoke, the energy in the room morphed. The tension began to crack, a softening at the edges. Lisa leaned forward, her expression shifting from nervousness to eagerness. "She's right, Jenna. We all look to you for leadership, but it's disheartening when it feels fabricated." Jenna's eyes darted, grappling with the truth being laid bare. Suddenly, it wasn't merely about one member's failure. It was an invitation for everyone to introspect. This was the crux of Sarah's growth, the revelation that challenges extended beyond personal struggles. They encompassed those interwoven connections that could transform the group into something profoundly richer if they dared to confront their shortcomings together. "What if," Sarah proposed cautiously, "we started sharing our genuine thoughts on the books we read? No pretenses, just honesty. Even if that means admitting we didn't understand a passage, or disliked a novel completely. How about starting with our next pick?" A flicker of interest sparked among the members. Julie, usually quiet, nodded slowly. "I'd love that. It feels exhausting sometimes to pretend we all adore the same plot twist or interpretation." Jenna inhaled deeply, like a swimmer surfacing after a long dive. I'd be okay with trying that," she admitted, the defiant sparkle in her eyes slowly dimming to allow for humility. "I want to belong, but I don't want to do it this way." Momentarily, Sarah felt a swell of relief. The confrontation had not severed bonds, but instead unveiled a need for collective honesty. Yet, lingering questions wrapped around her heart like fog, blurring the clarity this discussion had briefly offered. Did she truly want this growth, or was she merely seeking validation from her peers? Her thoughts spiraled, questioning the genuine motivations driving her need for integrity. In pursuing truth, was she prepared for potential fractures in relationships, or even worse, self-identity? The uncertainty weighed heavier than she anticipated as the conversation shifted back into a light, albeit more honest, banter. Yet deep down, a tremor of apprehension echoed, for she sensed that this awakening was merely a prelude. As the meeting wrapped up, an uneasy thread pulled at Sarah. Was this the moment she had longed for, or had she simply scratched the surface of a deeper struggle? The dialogue had opened a door, but within lay more intricate secrets to unravel. The repercussions of this honesty were still unknown. But, as she collected her belongings, she couldn't shake the feeling that the stakes were much higher. The true challenge would come next week when they discussed a novel that had torn at the seams of their previous discussions. An exploration of betrayal and integrity that mirrored their own unfolding truths. And so, this new chapter beckoned, layered in anticipation and uncertainty. Could they bear to confront their vulnerabilities as they dove into a story where deception reigned? Sarah entered her apartment, heart still racing from the evening's charged discussions. The walls, once suffocating with their silence, now felt alive with possibility. Yet as she sank into a worn-out chair, a shadow crept back into her mind, chilling the heated exhilaration of the meeting. Was she brave, or merely reckless? The line blurred with each replay of her words, a confrontation steeped in her own fears. She shifted her gaze to the stack of books on her coffee table, the very tomes that had united them in their shared literary experience. This week's selection, one that promised to explore the very essence of betrayal, loomed as a silent antagonist. What if the secrets unearthed in the pages echoed the hidden fractures within them? Would they be ready to dismantle their facades, or would the unraveling expose her own vulnerabilities too? Competing thoughts swirled. Introspection demanded accountability. It also unveiled scars. As thoughts swam through her mind, an unsettling realization dawned. No longer could she sidestep the deeper implications of her personal journey. Her integrity had hung on a razor's edge, poised precariously between enlightenment and isolation. Seeking a distraction, Sarah picked up her phone, scrolling through social media. As she flicked through posts, envy tugged within her. Friends appeared blissful, their laughter echoing through perfect pictures. The contrast to her own tumult of emotions stung sharply, a reminder of her own perceived inadequacies. Perhaps they weren't merely superficial bonds constructed on shared interests. They seemed rich, meaningful, but in striving for authenticity, had she endangered these connections? What if her revelations stripped her of companionship instead? Determined to find actionable clarity, she turned to her journal, pages crammed with reflections and scribbles. The rhythm of her pen against paper grounded her bypassing thoughts. Lists of goals spun out. First, to confront her fear of judgment, and second, to embrace the vulnerability that came with genuine expression. But behind these well-intentioned musings, a realization deepened. Authentic communication relied on the ability to receive feedback without crumbling. There lay a precipice she needed to navigate, a defining moment where her desire to grow would either fortify her resolve or fracture her spirit further. Despite the creeping fear, Sarah felt the embers of determination shift within her as she jotted down one poignant word. Depths. The depths of her understanding, her relationships, and her own self-awareness demanded exploration. The book club would become the crucible for her transformation, each meeting a test of her willingness to plunge into challenging waters. As the week passed, Sarah prepared for the following group discussion, her stomach churning with both excitement and dread. Could the members pull back the curtain on their hidden truths? More importantly, could she face her own under the harsh light of scrutiny? On the day of the meeting, she arrived early, tension coiling around her, fueling an internal dialogue. As her peers trickled in, she willed herself to stay focused, reminding herself that vulnerability could serve as a bridge rather than a barrier. But even as she engaged in light chatter, her resolve flickered. Each smile masked a question. Each laugh surrounded an unvoiced fear. As the discussion began, she sensed a surge of emotions bubbling beneath the surface, a powerful undercurrent of apprehension. And that was when Jenna spoke up, her voice quaking. This week's novel, it felt too close to home. I'm not sure I can share my thoughts without coming off as hypocritical. The reaction was instantaneous. Silence enveloped the room like a heavy cloak, eyes darting around expecting someone else to speak up, to reveal their own unease. Sarah felt her heart race as she realized this was her moment, a potential turning point. Maybe that's the point, she urged, straightening her spine. We can't be hypocrites if we acknowledge our feelings. Isn't that the first step towards honesty? But as the room's tension simmered, one thought pierced through. Would they venture into the vulnerability she had opened? or retreat into the comfortable silence of superficiality? As they deliberated, Sarah could sense not just the stakes of their discussion rising, but the urgent need within herself to untangle the intricate threads tying self-acceptance to the fabric of belonging. Could they unravel the deeper existential threads of their identities together? Unscripted and raw, the silence stretched unbearably, an invisible wall built from doubts and fears. Sarah felt the weight of their gazes, each pair reflecting her own internal struggle. Would they dare to breach the fragile barrier of self-preservation? The question loomed, both daunting and exhilarating. Maybe we should consider that vulnerability is strength, not weakness. Sarah pressed, her voice stronger now. What we fear may be what unites us. As her words sank into the collective consciousness of the group, she could see a flicker of understanding in Jenna's eyes. That faint spark gave her an extra surge of motivation. Yet just as quickly, it was overshadowed by her deep-seated anxiety. What if her attempt to lead them deeper only revealed her inadequacies? Can't we all agree that reading these books is comfortable? Raised Marcus, leaning forward, his brow furrowed. It's the discussion part that feels risky. His voice resonated as a palpable truth. Sarah nodded, acknowledging the point. But risk is how we grow, isn't it? We can't truly understand the books or ourselves without exploring those uncomfortable thoughts. This is about more than merely discussing words. It's about our lives. She felt a mixture of relief and fear wash over her. The opening had created a bridge, but how long would it last? Would they follow her lead, or retreat into the safety of idle chit-chat? Lillian, who had often remained a quiet observer, finally broke the spell of silence. What if we shared something personal that connects with the book, our own betrayals or experiences? Her tone was tentative, but the hint of curiosity sparked hope in Sarah. Yes! Sarah exclaimed, buoyed by the encouragement. We're here for more than discussion. We can grow together. She glanced around the room, searching for confirmation, but found hesitation reflected in the hesitance on their faces. Marcus cleared his throat and shifted uncomfortably. Okay, I'll go first. The admission hung in the air, and she felt her heart race as he began to weave a tale of heartache and self-doubt, a betrayal of trust, losing a friend over a misunderstanding. With every word, he dropped layers of his own feigned composure. As he spoke, Sarah wondered if she could muster the same courage. Her hands trembled, gripping the edge of the table as more members slowly began to share their stories, each revelation peeling back another layer of vulnerability. The room transformed. What had felt like a crucible was slowly morphing into a sanctuary of healing. Yet as the confessions flowed like a river breaking through a dam, Sarah felt the pull of her own truths nagging at her. They bubbled closer to the surface, demanding to be shared. What lay wrapped beneath her skin was daunting, a history she had never dared to voice for fear of judgment, even ridicule. What if it shattered their newfound sense of belonging? A ripple of silence enveloped her when she opened her mouth. I have something to say. The air thickened with unspoken tension, the echo of her own heartbeats drowning out the world around her. Whatever came next would define this moment, not just for her, but for her relationships with each of them. Was she ready to share the very things she had buried deep inside? But before she could summon the courage, Jenna's voice cut through the air with an unexpected vulnerability. I also feel like I've betrayed myself by pretending to be someone I'm not in this group. As Jenna spoke, Sarah felt a sinking realization. Was her own fear of revelation actually an act of self-betrayal? In delaying the sharing of her truths, would she symbolize all that her group sought to overcome? The questions clawed at her mind, and as she inhaled deeply in an attempt to regain composure, she recognized a sliver of clarity. She could stay in the shadows, or she could be a part of the light. The next few moments took on an urgent weight. Could she gather the strength to share her own truths? And if she did, what paths might that open? Not just for her, but for everyone in the room. Her heart raced again. Not just from fear, but from the thrill of possibility. She needed to speak, a decision solidifying within her. The moment hung palpably as she internalized, deep down, that embracing who she truly was could be her greatest act of bravery yet. The air vibrated with anticipation, and the conversation shifted, now weighted with her decision. Would she break the silence that felt both alluring and terrifying, or retreat into the safety of the known? As she rose to speak, she silently questioned the price of her own honesty. Would this lead to deeper connections, or incite the unraveling of all she had built? One choice before her could reshape everything. Would she risk it all for authenticity? The room's shifting dynamics hung in the balance as Sarah took a deep breath, ready to step toward the unknown. Would she find strength in vulnerability? Or would the shards of her truth shatter the fragile new connections they had forged together? As Sarah stood on the precipice of revelation, the world around her dimmed, narrowing her focus to the faces before her. They watched with eager anticipation, each of their expressions a silent plea for honesty, for a glimpse of the person she had long hidden behind layers of self-doubt. Her heart thundered in her chest like an unyielding drum, pushing her toward a decision that would irrevocably alter her standing within the group. "Okay," she began, her voice quivering slightly. "I'm terrified of saying this, but I feel like I've been pretending too." A rush of vulnerability surged through her, as if the very air had cracked open to let her words spill out. "I've been so afraid of judgment that I've hidden parts of myself. I haven't been genuine, and I know that now." The room was still, breath held as she continued. "I thought that by putting on a likable face, I would belong, but I've realized that all I was doing was building walls." As she spoke, her instincts urged her to retreat, to clamp her mouth shut and deny the truth. Panic flared in her chest, but with each subsequent breath, the warmth of liberation gently replaced it. The reality of her admission dawned like the first blush of dawn cutting through the darkness. "You talked about betrayal, Jenna. I've betrayed myself by thinking that sharing my story wouldn't matter. I thought it would keep me safe." Sarah felt the heat rise to her cheeks, her past clawing at her resolve. But amidst the fear, she sensed an inherent strength building within her, a strength that stemmed from exposing her fears rather than being fettered by them. More to the point, she recognized the power of authenticity. Bridging the gap between herself and others was now achievable through the very act that terrified her. The previously stifling silence began to fill with murmurs of affirmation from her peers, their collective energy shifting as if they too were shedding their apprehensions. "That's real, Sarah," Marcus said gently, his tone a mix of encouragement and understanding that soothed her frayed nerves. "We all wear masks at times." Lillian's eyes brightened. "It's hard to foster intimacy when we don't let down our guards. You've started something important here." As she absorbed their responses, Sarah felt emboldened. Her acceptance of vulnerability morphed into a dance of resilience. She had crossed a threshold that led not just to personal growth, but also to potential for profound connection amongst the group. What had once felt foreign now seemed attainable. Together they could nurture order from the chaos of their experiences. Yet as the tide of shared stories began to crest, a shadow crept into her thoughts. While exploring her own truths appeared liberating, Sarah grappled with the uncertainty of the consequences that could follow these revelations. What if they didn't reciprocate her vulnerability? What if exposing herself opened the door to confrontation instead of connection? Have you ever felt that knowing who you truly are could bring more pain than peace? She questioned the group, the weight of her fears palpable in the space between them. The very existence of such uncertainties mirrored a painful reality she could no longer ignore. The conversations shifted yet again, now colored with deeper reflections on self-perception, and the fear of judgment. The struggles of self-identity that had long haunted Sarah reverberated through the circle, each story resonating with a collective resonance of unease mixed with understanding. For every shared shadow, there was a glimmer of hope. But as the session drew on, Sarah could feel the undercurrent stirring within her. A pressing curiosity about her past that went beyond validations from the group. What would she uncover about herself if she ventured deeper into those hidden parts? Her heart raced again at the thought, an unsettling mix of excitement and trepidation swirling within her. The journey was far from over. It had only just begun. In that moment, the significance of vulnerability clarified before her. It wasn't merely a tool for connection. It was an invitation for self-discovery. Would she have the courage to explore further? To peel back even more layers of herself? As the last word of encouragement echoed, the truth lingered. The scars shaped who she was. The moment had arrived for her not just to feel, but to act. And just as the group settled into a reflective silence, Sarah was struck by an electrifying question. What undisclosed fears or buried aspirations would emerge if she were brave enough to venture into her past? This newfound clarity held a promise. While she had taken a bold step, she sensed there was still much more to explore. The path ahead beckoned, a journey toward unveiling deeper layers of herself. And she questioned, would she dare to embark on that odyssey of self-exploration? The echoes of their affirmations still hummed in her ears, mingling with the weight of her confession. Sarah sat on the edge of a transformative precipice, drawn towards the depths of her past, but tethered by hesitation. The group had welcomed her vulnerability, but that embrace also opened doors she hadn't previously considered. What awaited her beyond the threshold of her guarded persona? She left the meeting with a swirling chaos of emotions, dictating her footsteps as she navigated the familiar streets of her neighborhood. Each step felt heavier than the last, infused with both a sense of relief and an unnerving anticipation. Sarah began to question what lay buried beneath the surface of her heart. Shadows of past choices and fears obscured her path. It began to feel like a labyrinth of her own design. Sitting on a worn oak bench in the park, she drew in a deep breath, the cool air filling her lungs and grounding her amidst the tumult. Today's exploration had sparked a flicker of curiosity, one that begged to be fed. She opened her bag to find the notebook she usually carried for jotting down thoughts or sketches, a habit she had cultivated throughout years of self-reflection. However, today was different. Instead of her usual musings, she felt drawn to explore the deeper fabric of her being. Her fingers hesitated over the blank page, not because she lacked material, but due to the weight of what she was about to uncover. She needed to confront the uneasy truths she often masked under layers of routine. A past marked by failed relationships, skipped opportunities, and dreams that faded into the recesses of her mind. Could she transform her understanding of these moments into a story of growth? What if I started by writing about the pivotal moments? She whispered to herself, the words filling the silence of the park. With renewed resolve, Sarah began to write. Her initial scribbles morphed into a fragmented narrative. Her first friendship at 6 that ended tumultuously. Her parents' divorce that bred silent guilt. And the countless times she turned down invitations or choices out of fear. Each sentence unraveled the tightly woven threads that had constructed her facade. The act of confronting the past, though unsettling, transformed into a cathartic ritual. But as she poured her heart onto the paper, another layer beneath the surface tugged at her attention. A nagging sensation that this introspection was merely scratching the surface. Could it be that hidden talents awaited her discovery? She had noted several friends pursue artistic careers, while she had always relegated her creativity to hobbies. What if there was more to her than she ever let herself believe? The more she wrote, the more her perception of herself started to shimmer with possibility. Yet the trepidation of judging herself starkly loomed. Would she open channels that would expose her failings in pursuit of greatness? What if she dared to explore those dormant artistic desires, knowing they might reveal a whole new identity she had thoroughly obscured. As the shadows lengthened across the park, Sarah realized her notebook had morphed into a canvas, a bridge to her aspirations. While she had unearthed her fears, there was a palpable distinction between fear and exploration. Her fingers danced over the pages, summoning a quiet determination to confront what lay inside. The mere act of expressing her thoughts liberated her. Suddenly, a quiet voice echoed from within. What if I shared this journey with others, instead of staying confined to solitude? The thought electrified her. Perhaps that was the key to breaking down the walls she'd consciously built around herself. As twilight settled, transforming the world into dusky shades of blue and gold, she folded her notebook and tucked it inside her bag. The ground beneath felt different, more stable. She had taken a small step toward embracing her uncertainty. The exhilaration of potential unfolding mingled within her chest, rising like bubbles ready to burst. With a bittersweet mix of fear and excitement, she pondered. Was she ready to reveal her artistic urges openly? The more she contemplated the myriad of choices ahead, the clearer her path became. Holding on to that fleeting moment of empowerment, she whispered her resolve into the evening air. I will not just feel. It's time to act. As she walked home, a thought flickered in her mind's eye. Would the act of sharing her creative exploration lead to unexpected connections? The weight of her realizations shifted from trepidation to resolve, pushing her forward into the unknown. She knew the journey would demand more from her than simply unearthing buried memories. It would require action. And with her heart racing anew, she couldn't help but wonder. What would happen if the first brushstroke toward her self-discovery lay in simply sharing her story? The following days passed in a blur as Sarah found herself engulfed in an exhilarating wave of uncertainty. Each morning, she woke up with a renewed sense of purpose, but also a tangle of nerves that pulled at her stomach. The question of how to act on her emerging desire loomed over her, both exhilarating and daunting. It was clear that the wall between her and the artistic identity she longed for was poised to crumble. Yet each time she attempted to push forward, her internal monologue erupted with doubts. Who would care about what I have to say? The familiar refrain haunted her as she sat at her kitchen table, glancing at the open notebook. The pages remained almost completely blank, the weight of potential heavy and suffocating. But every time her hand hovered over the paper, it felt like a chasm opened, revealing deeper fears. Was she truly capable? Would others even understand her story? Maybe a safe space to start is through the book club. She considered aloud, a thought forming like a fragile blossom pushing through the winter soil. If she could share her insights within a trusted circle, perhaps she could unravel her trepidation. As she envisioned the group exchanging ideas, her excitement intertwined with anxiety. But it felt manageable, less monumental than facing a broader audience of strangers. On the following Thursday evening, Sarah arrived at the meeting with her heart racing, a small stack of triggering prompts she had peppered throughout her notebook. Each note was a tender reminder of the lessons learned from her memories and struggles. She took a deep breath, allowing the cool air to settle her nerves as she entered the familiar room. Members greeted her with warm smiles, yet each smile felt like a spotlight, illuminating her insecurities. When it came time for sharing, she hesitated. What if her words didn't resonate? But as the sharing began, she listened intently to others, witnessing the vulnerability and authenticity that poured from them. That was the missing element she had craved, the fragility behind each story. She felt a spark ignite within her. After a round of sharing, when the conversation was flowing, she clasped her hands tightly, forcing her palms to relax. I brought some thoughts, she finally said, her voice wavering. I'd like to share something that's been on my mind recently. The group's attentive eyes turned to her with genuine interest, and with each word she spoke, It felt as though shackles were loosening around her heart. She spoke of her childhood memories and her parents' divorce, not holding back the emotions that spilled forth. As she navigated through her tangled past, she noticed nods of understanding, murmurs of empathy rippling through the air. It was cathartic and liberating, and for the first time, she felt a true connection with others as they related to her experiences. "Does anyone else feel the same pressure to conform to what society expects of artists?" she asked, her heart pounding as she surrendered the conversation back to the group. The floodgates opened, and soon they were dissecting the very fears and aspirations she had laid bare. Every voice added layers to the discussion, creating a tapestry of shared experience and raw honesty. It became clear that many had wrestled with their perceived limitations, which illuminated Sarah's own struggle with self-doubt. As laughter filled the air and encouragement flowed freely, her spirit soared. Leaving the meeting that night, she felt lighter, bolstered by the realization that sharing her journey need not be a solitary endeavor. But one nagging thought clouded her exhilaration. What would happen if she took this connection a step further and committed to submitting her work to the local literary magazine? Would they harshly judge her perceptions? Would it lead to more connections, or a shattering of her fragile confidence? As she approached her front door, doubt flickered once more. But this time it was accompanied by a daring glimmer of ambition, a determination to pursue this unfolding path. Wasn't it time to dip her toes even further into the pool of creativity? With that thought ignited, she pushed open her door and stepped inside, holding the warmth of the evening's revelations close. The question echoed in her mind as she climbed into bed. Could she truly go beyond sharing within her comfort zone and embrace the mantle of a creator in the eyes of the world? Sarah woke the next morning to a sky painted in soft pastels, an early dawn, promising renewal. But the flicker of confidence from the previous night's revelations felt like a flame dwindling, overtaken by doubt. As she sipped her coffee, her gaze drifted toward the notebook on the table. What if I'm not ready? The thought pierced her mind. Sharp and insistent, she decided to devote the day to writing, determined to confront her fears by putting words on the page. Each scratch of her pen felt foreign, her hand trembling as it hovered over the blank canvas. The notebook, once a vessel of potential, now felt like a battleground where her insecurities fought back fiercely. What would happen if she bared her soul and it wasn't enough? But deep down, a different question whispered. What if you surprise yourself? With every word she wrote, Sarah was transported back into the vulnerable moments she had shared with the book club. Their encouragement danced in her thoughts, urging her on. Slowly, sentences began to form, shadows of her experiences articulating themselves as prose. She wrote about laughter shared over old memories, the searing pain of loss, and that fleeting heartache at the crossroads of who she was and who she wanted to become. However, every paragraph birthed new doubts whether she was capturing the essence of her feelings. A wave of frustration washed over her, leading her to crumple a page into a tight ball and toss it aside. Why is this so hard? She questioned, momentarily defeated. Taking a deep breath, she stepped away from the table. Maybe distance would help. She wandered outside, allowing the cool air to refresh her jumbled thoughts. The neighborhood buzzed with life. Children played, and a neighbor waved as he walked his dog. Yet Sarah felt isolated within her own thoughts, an artist grappling with her vision against a backdrop of complacency. She wanted to create, but every potential step forward felt like a leap off a cliff. A flash of inspiration sparked as she spotted a tree's branches swaying in the wind. The sight urged her back inside, where she resumed her place at the table. With renewed resolve, she began to write again, focusing not on the perfection of her words, but on the authenticity of her voice. Her pen moved swiftly, pouring her insecurities onto the page. There was power in acknowledging them, an acknowledgement of her fear, and of her growing desire to break through it. After hours went by, she sat back to read what she had poured onto the paper. It surprised her how rawly it spoke to who she was. The struggles, the growth, the yearning. The familiar sense of doubt began to resurface as she processed what she had created. Is this good enough? The words fought against her optimism, but she took it in stride. There would always be room for improvement, but there was also a truth in capturing herself this way, imperfection and all. That night she returned to her notebook with a fresh vision. If submitting to the local literary magazine seemed daunting, perhaps she could target her skills to the people who mattered, the book club. Why not share this with them first? After all, they had sparked her creative fire again, and maybe they could provide the critique, positive or constructive, that she needed to bolster her confidence. With a fierce heartbeat, she drafted an email to share her newfound piece with the group. The act felt monumental. Hovering over the send button, her finger trembled for a moment, doubt whispering in her ear before she shook it off. She was ready to embrace this challenge, to confront whatever feedback they would offer. Deep down, she knew this leap could build her confidence and ignite her creativity once more. As she pressed send, a wave of exhilaration washed over her. However, beneath that excitement loomed another layer of fear. What if she exposed herself and it came crashing down? Little did she know that the response from her friends would take her on an unexpected journey, one that would help redefine her identity and creative aspirations. But as the minutes ticked by with no reply from the group, uncertainty began to worm its way back into her mind. Was she truly prepared for what lay ahead? The anticipation hung heavy in the still air, taunting Sarah as she returned to her daily routine, waiting for any hint of a response from her book club. Each minute felt like an hour. With every glance at her phone, a nagging voice echoed within her. What if they don't like it? What if all this was for nothing? Yet, amidst the uncertainty, Sarah felt a stirring hope, a hope ignited by her courage to share, to step beyond her own limitations. Confronting her fears had been no small feat, and this leap nudged her closer toward self-discovery. After pouring her heart out, she was on the verge of reclaiming her narrative. It was the beginning of something greater, and she sensed it. When the notification finally appeared, her heart raced. The message from Lisa was quick to load, a testament to the bond they had formed in that book club. Sarah, I just read what you shared. I'm so proud of you. Your story resonates with so many of us. I can't wait to discuss it tonight. The wave of affirmation washed over her, propelling the bubble of anxiety that had enveloped her moments earlier. Responses trickled in. Marcus praised her insight, while Jenna, almost apologetically, confessed to feeling inspired and hopeful. As praises flooded in, Sarah felt the fear of inadequacy dissolve, swept away by genuine connection and validation. She hadn't just shared her voice. She had invited others to engage with their own, sparking a conversation that transcended the boundaries of their individual lives. That evening's book club was electric, charged by the honesty that coursed through the room. One by one, members spoke up, drawing parallels from Sarah's experiences to their own. There was a liberation in admitting past struggles, collected wisdom shared among friends. Conversations bloomed as they explored their vulnerabilities in connection with literature, paving the way for exhilarating discussions, unlike any of their previous meetings. Sarah marveled at the transformation. The magic of authentic sharing enkindled trust beyond their literary appreciation. It became a celebration of individuality. It no longer mattered whether the book of the week had been read cover to cover. What mattered was the collective exploration of truth, the unexpected healing through shared stories. As the night wound to a close, Lisa made a suggestion that drew Sarah's breath. Why don't we collaborate on a piece for the local literary magazine? We could include our reflections on our recent reads and this amazing discussion Sarah inspired. The energy of the room erupted into excitement, and Sarah's heart swelled with pride. She had set this in motion by being her authentic self, spurred the group's evolution, and now they were discussing unity and creativity. Months later, as Sarah held a copy of the magazine open to the feature section showcasing their collaborative work, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The journey had pushed her to confront her fears, but it had also allowed her to nurture connections that had been simmering under the surface. Each story flowed into one another, a tapestry woven in vulnerability, threading their stories into a shared legacy. In those pages, she could see her once uncertain self transformed. A bold version now thriving, unafraid of revealing her journey. She had proven to herself that true fulfillment lay in authenticity, in showing up as her genuine self. It was more than just a newspaper feature. It marked a pivotal turning point. Sarah had established her position and was recognized not just as a participant, but as a leader within her circle. The echoes of her insecurities had transformed into powerful lessons that resonated for others. As she looked around the room, witnessing the pride etched on her friends' faces, Sarah felt their triumph alongside her. She had conquered her fears, demonstrated her depth, and, in doing so, had created a collective space for growth that would endure. Empowered, ready to continue her artistic journey, she promised herself that this was only the beginning. Sarah had emerged not only as a better writer, but as a more authentic version of herself, fueled by the understanding that vulnerability is indeed strength. Now, with her heart full, Sarah was determined to seize this moment and continue pursuing the dreams that lay ahead, knowing that each step forward would lead her closer to becoming the creator she always envisioned. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help our community grow. Comment your reactions and theories about how Sarah's journey might continue. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's inspire them to embrace their own journeys. Don't wait even one more second to share the empowerment.